More than a quarter of Australians say they're financially struggling, according to the results of the Australia Talks National Survey.
Millions of people in Australia are having a hard time making ends meet because of the cost of living keeps going up. Because cash has a high interest rate, a lot of people are turning to credit cards or their savings to pay for things. On top of that, the cost of things like food, gas, electricity, and rentals are going up. There are many experts who are positive because they think that the cash rate will go down in the future. This does give people hope. The current state in the economy in Australia, on the other hand, means that having just one job is not enough for a lot of people to cover their daily costs. When you think about how bad things are getting for the economy in Australia and how the cost of living crisis is making things worse, it looks like a big problem. Are there ways to get out of this mess, and does the future look good? We need to look into both of these things, but let's start with the economic one. There are a lot of different metrics and cohorts that can be used to see if things are getting better. This kind of instrument is shown by the cost of living pressure gauge. The company founder made this tool, which is an important one for figuring out how much money Australian families are having trouble paying their bills. There has been a big rise in this indicator over the last few months. In January of this year, it reached 79%. That this is such a big number means that the economy of the country is having a lot of problems. As things stand, 78% of people in Australia are still under a lot of stress about their money, which is, to put it mildly, very worrying. The worry is especially common when it comes to housing costs, as 56% of homeowners and 63% of renters say they are having trouble paying their bills to cover their living costs. There are a lot more people who feel this way than there were in 2020, when only 80% of homeowners and 32% of renters did. Even though the current pressure reading is 4% lower than its highest point of 83% in April, it shows that Australian households are still having a hard time with money. Before we move ahead with this analysis, I'd like to give you a few seconds to show us your support by subscribing to the channel. To stay updated with the latest, you can always choose to turn the notifications on, as well as clicking on that bell icon. Regardless, let's get back to the topic at hand. It's possible that this will be the last time that the cost of living goes up for a long time. Around the month of December, it was thought that this pressure gauge would start to go down, but in the end, the numbers told a different story. Because of this, the recent 1% rise wasn't completely unexpected, but it did come as a bit of a shock. In December 2022, the rate of inflation was at 7.8%. Because of this, the percentage has gone down to 5.4%. And yet the cash rate has stayed high, and the extra financial stress that comes with spending money on Christmas has made things even worse for people. That being said, it's possible that this rise in stress that money causes will be the last one for a while. There is an agreement amongst economists that the cash rate has reached its highest point. According to the Reserve Bank of Australia, or the RBA, cash rate survey done by Finder, in 2024, it is less likely that rates will go up again because of this. Some people on the panel think that the cash rates might go down, but it's not likely to happen anytime soon. It is thought by everyone that interest rates might go down, most likely in the last quarter of 2024 or in 2025. Thankfully, we can make a lot of different assertions about the current situations with the dates we have when inflation rates dropped faster than expected. James Morley from the University of Sydney noticed that there is a move around the world to raise rates. The reason for this is that inflation rates have generally gone down. Because of this trend, it is more likely that the Reserve Bank of Australia will also stop raising interest rates. Though he did say the Reserve Bank of Australia might think about raising rates again if service inflation is higher than expected. He doesn't think this will happen anytime soon, because the economy and job market would have to get a lot worse before the Reserve Bank of Australia will start giving interest rates a cut. After careful consideration, it looks like rates will go down until at least the second half of 2024. Mark Mellitus, who is also connected to the University of Sydney, agreed the points of view that were talked about here. Speaking about inflation, he said that even though it has been going down lately, it is still much higher than the target range set by the RBA. It's still not clear what effects tightening monetary policies will have on cutting back on spending. Additionally, he said that changes in income have not had a big effect on house prices, and that prices have stayed the same even though interest rates have gone up. It is very unlikely that the cash rate will go down as long as the unemployment rate in Australia stays low, which means that everyone is working, according to Mellitus, who is a reliable economic expert. In fact, he doesn't say there won't be any more price hikes in the future. On the other hand, we do have a few different ideas about these projections. For instance, Shane Oliver is a chief economist at AMP, doesn't agree with this point of view. On the other hand, he thinks that the Reserve Bank of Australia will start lowering interest rates soon. Oliver holds the view that several factors will likely prevent interest rates from increasing again in the month of February. He points to a variety of reasons, including a notable decline in inflation rates observed in December, a reduction in retail sales during the same period, and an uptake in the unemployment rate. Oliver is of the opinion that by the time June arrives, there will be sufficient evidence available to persuade the Reserve Bank of Australia to commence the process of reducing interest rates, giving the signs that economic growth is decelerating and that inflation rates are on a downward trajectory. Despite the fact that the immediate reduction of interest rates does not seem imminent, there are indications that prices might start to decrease. This perspective is supported by statements from two of the largest retail giants globally, Woolworths and Coles, which have both reported reductions in prices across several sections within their grocery departments. The Reserve Bank of Australia has set a target for inflation to be contained within a range of 2% to 3%. Yet despite the observed trend, inflation levels continue to exceed this desired bracket. In a recent move, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese summoned all governmental members to Canberra, the nation's capital, for a meeting that was scheduled 2 weeks ahead of the usual timetable. The purpose of this early gathering was to deliberate on potential adjustments to the widely debated Stage 3 tax cuts and to explore new strategies for reducing the living costs, all in preparation for the budget's announcement slated for May. As for the discussions on tax reductions, a definitive decision remains pending. The public has been encouraged to devise personal strategies to shield themselves from the escalating pressures associated with the rising cost of living, pending further details on the actions that Labour government might undertake. As we embarked on the year 2023, studies conducted in Australia revealed that individuals who had managed to save money were significantly less vulnerable to financial strain caused by inflationary pressures. On a brighter note, saving accounts, which presents one of the most affordable financial products currently available, offers a glimmer of hope. There are financial institutions promoting attractive rates for short-duration loans, but caution is advised against these options. Instead, individuals should seek out accounts that provide stable interest rates for long-term savings. At present, over a dozen banking institutions are offering returns exceeding 5%. Leading the pack, ING offers an impressive rate of 5.5%, closely followed by Move with a rate of 5.7%. Not far behind, Macquarie and Teachers Mutual both offer competitive rates of 5.5%. While it's crucial to conduct thorough research before making any financial commitments, the institutions mentioned here stand out as noteworthy contenders in the current market. Because of this, we're going to talk about how to deal with this crisis. Having a big savings account can help with money problems. That being said, it's important to keep in mind that a savings account is not the only way to solve the problem. Making sure you pay off your debts with a high interest rate first is very important. This is especially true for credit card balances. Additionally, this is an important part of managing money well. We've now reached the second part of the same problem by doing this. Many people in Australia are finding that they're having just one job is not enough to cover their daily costs. Because of the way things are right now, this trend is likely to keep going. Multiple times this year, these ideas have been brought up and have been in the subject of a lot of discussion. It is very clear that the people of Australia will continue to care a lot about this issue as we move into next year. It looks like the most popular economic plan is for the government to spend more money and make fewer concessions in labour unions. People in the middle class are under a lot of financial stress because of this strategy. which has never been seen before. This approach to economy has been supported by James Chalmers, who is currently Treasurer. Compared to the people who came before him, he is known for having a more left-wing view. Another thing Chalmers wants to do is to change the way capitalism works. He also wants to be Prime Minister one day. He is part of a new generation of political leaders, most of whom are on the centre-left, different from the political leaders in the past. A more forceful and aggressive way of running the country is what these leaders are known for. One of the most common misconceptions about the Australian Bureau of Statistics is that it is a think tank that supports the extreme right. However, the most recent data from the organisation demonstrates this is not the case. In the present moment, there are nearly 1 million people in Australia who are employed in more than one job. Apart from those who hold 2 part-time jobs, there are other individuals who find themselves in the predicament. For example, there are individuals who work 4 hours here and 4 hours there. Due to the fact that they only make the minimum wage, many people find it extremely difficult to make ends meet. This is a sad picture of the situation, despite the fact that they put in close to 40 hours of work each week. These individuals are exerting a great deal of effort, but they are still unable to keep up with the ever-rising costs of living. Now that the current administration is in charge, the situation is even more dire than it was before. To put things in perspective, and dispel any ideas that this is just an interpretation being seen as a political issue, let's look at an example from the past. There was a politician in the years before he was elected Prime Minister who tried to make a scandal out of the numbers that were much lower than the current million people in Australia who work in more than one job. There is no getting around the harsh fact that a lot of people are going through terrible things right now. At least 500,000 people in Australia are thought to be working 3 or more jobs. For a large part of the population, this shows how bad things are, politically and economically. When we talk about jobs and how important it is to have more than one job in Australia, the situation we're looking at gets even more complicated and multifaceted. A good guess as to how many people are working 3 or 4 jobs at the same time is hard to come up with. While this is true, it is also clear that the number of people who have more than one job has grown significantly and is now at 955,000. The number is a big jump from 2020, when there was less than 800,000 recorded. These people clearly work more hours than people who only have one job, because their total number of hours worked is higher than those who only have one job. It is important to remember that men who work more than one job put in a lot more than the usual 40 hours per week. In fact, a lot of those put in almost 45 hours per week on average. On the other hand, women who work more than one job usually put in a total of 35 hours of work each week, with 25 hours at one job and 10 hours at another. Every week, people with a secondary job usually put in a total of about 10 hours. This means that a lot of people have 2 jobs, which adds up to about 40 hours a week. This rapidly rising cost of living is without a doubt a major factor in this pattern. Taking care of children or grandchildren, keeping a house in good shape, and paying for petrol have all become more expensive, which makes things harder for those who make less money. Because of this, these people need to get more than one job in order to make ends meet. After that, we'll talk about how the government handles money from a second job, which is a messy subject. It's important to remember that the $18,000 tax-free amount only applies to your main job. People who have a second job may make money that is taxed. Higher taxes means that people who need to work 2 jobs to make ends meet will have to pay more, which goes against the common sense and makes their financial situation even worse. A lot of people are looking for ways to lower their tax bills because of this situation, which is similar to what Kerry Packer famously said about how important it is to pay as little tax as possible. Packer's criticism helped people understand why so many people try to lower their annual tax bill and why the government spends so much money that it doesn't get much back. When you really think about it, lowering taxes isn't just a matter of being smart with your money. It is also a way to fix a bigger problem with how the government spends its money. Australia is having a hard time with its economy right now, and the fact that people who have to work more than one job have to pay more taxes makes things even more difficult. Packers' words about paying as little tax as possible are just as important as they were 32 years ago. In the 21st century, this brings us up a problem that is still happening in the world of finance. There was a significant event that took place in 1991 that resulted in some very significant statements that are still pertinent to discussions that we are having today. Now that we have moved on to a more recent matter, we have discovered that the Australian Taxation Office has implemented a change that is very intriguing and ought to be carefully investigated. The Department of the Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS, has recently initiated a new project in which they are sending a large number of letters to a variety of individuals. The purpose of these letters, which are generated by computers, is to inform individuals that they are still in debt to the federal government and that they are responsible for paying such debt. If a person owes money to the tax office, they are required to make the payment as soon as possible. Nevertheless, on the other hand, this circumstance is also comparable to that of individuals who were receiving welfare. It is not possible to say with absolute certainty when this plan was initially proposed. However, it is common knowledge that rumours concerning it began to circulate in a significant and widespread manner while this government was still in power. A significant number of aspects of this idea are comparable to the conscientious robo-debt plan. With this new system, a computer will determine who owes money to the government, and then it will send collective notices to the individuals who are responsible for the debt. Both during the time that the robo-debt scheme was being implemented and after it had been completed in a short amount of time, it is very important to remember how angry this government was about it. A comparison can be made between this new method from the tax office and the robo-debt system, which is easy to understand. Many individuals were dissatisfied with the way in which the robo-debt program utilised computers to check the debt of welfare recipients and force them to pay back the money that they owe. Not only did they believe that this approach was impersonal, but they also believed that it was frequently incorrect. An example of this would be a government agency that is once again employing computer-generated methods in order to locate individuals who are alleged to be in debt and collect on those debts. Apparently, this lends to credence to these concerns. There are a lot of important questions that this new development brings up about how well, accurately and fairly government agencies can use automated systems to collect debt. People are also talking about how to best balance the benefits of technology with the needs of human oversight in sensitive areas like tax collection and welfare payments. Following the implementation of the controversial robo-debt system by the previous government, there was a great deal of legal trouble regarding the system. Additionally, it was detrimental to the economy. The people who lived there devised and managed a system that was not only in violation of the laws of Australia, but also considered to be cruel to the individuals who utilised it. The Liberal Party did not initiate the robo-debt scheme by accident. Contrary to popular belief, they deliberated over it and carried it out when they were ready. In the end, it was discovered that the government had made a grave error in putting this plan in action, which resulted in disastrous consequences for both the people and the economy. A significant number of individuals were dissatisfied with the harshness and callousness of the robo-debt system. There is a new phenomenon that is currently taking place, which is sometimes referred to as a robo-tax. People are talking about it. They are under the impression that within the near future someone will come up with a catchy and political charged name for this term, even though it is not currently being used. The Internal Revenue Service has indicated that they are prepared to take another look at this system at this point in time. The fact that some of the people who came to power by criticising the automated system that was used to send debt notices to welfare recipients are now in charge of a process that is very similar to the one that is used in the tax office is an interesting fact to take into consideration. If the government had been more conservative, these kind of actions would have probably made a lot of people angry. Still, it seems like the story is changing now that Labour is in charge. People are talking about the changes made by the last government, which they think was the best government overall. Many people believe that things will get better in the coming year, but it looks like this story is still full of twists and turns that no one saw coming. As the situation develops, for better or for worse, we'll be sure to keep you in the loop. For similar content, don't forget to check out some of the other videos on your screen. Until then, have a good one.